What's up, bookworms? This is Megan coming at you with another Cantina conversation. Today's episode features a chat with JC Cervantes. We're talking about her book, The Anatomy of Magic. That book is available on March 11th. Such a fun chat talking about how just her experiences in writing for different audiences, like different age levels, and how she navigates the subject matter or her storytelling depending on the age group that she's writing for and future projects. But either way, I'll let you guys get to it. Here is JC Cervantes. So today we've got JC Cervantes. We're talking about The Anatomy of Magic. That book comes out on March 11th. JC Cervantes, thank you so much for joining me today. I finished this book a couple days ago. It's fresh in my brain. So like you tugged at the heartstrings and it was such a unique magic system and I just loved all the connections throughout the story made and I was rooting for Lily and Sam and we're going to get into it. So thanks for digging a little bit deeper today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Perfect. So to get started, can you share a summary of the book so that people can follow along with the conversation?
Sure. So, this is actually a companion novel to The Enchanted Hacienda, which follows a family who are descended from another woman who has made a choice to align herself with the goddess who offers this life of magic that they can cultivate flowers and utilize the magic of the flowers for various spells and utilizing different kinds of methods to deliver that magic. But they must promise to always protect love and beauty. And so this particular story follows Lily. She is like I said, this is a companion novel, and she's the sister of our heroine from the first book, Enchanted Hacienda. And she has the ability to manipulate memory. And so these women, all the women in the family, the magic only passes to women and they only have daughters. And so it is a story of heartbreak and love and I really wanted to explore this idea of how does the heart hold on to memories? And is there a way that we can release that? And would we want to? So if you've had your heart broken, I think most of us have had our hearts shattered.
Mm,
What would that feel like? Would you ever give up the feeling of that? Would you give up the memories that are associated with that? And what would that look like? And what would that mean? And so Lily, who is a very successful OBGYN, is struggling with something from her past that she has kept a secret. She's actually spelled her heart and has not told her family. And she's really lived the past decade or so really having very light relationships with men. She wants to be the one in power. She doesn't want to be committed. She doesn't want to get tied down. And it's all because of her past and the fact that she gave her heart away many years ago and would really like to forget. But when something harrowing happens to her at the hospital, and so she flees to her family flower farm in Mexico, and she is faced with her past and can't outrun it anymore.
yeah, yeah, it's almost a little bit of a nightmare for her too, because of course she's been running away from it, and then it's in order to heal herself and this huge part of her, she has to confront things that she would just that's the last thing she wants to do. That's like her little like her personal hell. It's just she has no choice, unfortunately. So yeah, I felt for her because it was just like, yeah, who's the last person you want to see at your worst moment? And it's just yeah,
And there's
unfortunately, it
nothing I'm a rip off the Band-Aid kind of person. If I know pain is coming, whether it's physical or emotional, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get it over with. I can't sit with the anticipation of it. But yeah, I think that's the struggle, right? Is she knows how much this is gonna hurt, and there's nothing that she can do to get out of it, really.
yeah, and it's just try not to be too spoilery, but I also loved how, like, she was keeping a secret from her family too, and so when something's wrong and she has to turn to them because she has to figure it out, and then that means she has to, like, share things with them, and there's, like, a sense of embarrassment and shame, and
Mhm.
it's her heart is still not fully healed, and I felt for her because, like you said, like, but I feel like majority if you haven't had your heart broken, you probably are the person doing the breaking or you're lying. I don't know. But it's yeah, and it's that's actually that'll is for personally for myself, it's I feel like this book will definitely well, readers can resonate with that idea of yeah, what I want to rid that part of myself to help protect myself and protect my heart. What I want to would I be willing to get rid of those memories or get rid of everything, how that because I speaking from personal experience, yeah, when I got my heart broken, like, that was, like, I it was like a shift, like, I changed and I knew better and I knew what I deserved and I knew how to approach relationships. I knew like the kind of person I was and what I needed to work on as a result of that because obviously nobody's perfect. But yeah, it was would I be willing to I wouldn't be the same person if I
Right,
didn't remember.
right.
Yeah. If I
Yeah,
forgot all that I went through.
yeah, exactly. And there's something really beautiful about memories that they've always been something that have tugged on my own heart. And it's interesting because I'm not a nostalgic person at all.
Mhm.
I really have always been a forward viewing, forward thinking person. But there's something really interesting about the way she can deliver magic. And so she can actually, as a gift, deliver a memory to someone where it's not just them remembering it, but they're actually reliving it in all five senses. And how many of us wouldn't want to go back to? We've all had those moments of bliss or those moments where it's just absolute perfection
Yeah.
and not I think there's a big difference between happiness and joy, but like that deep joy that almost gets down to the soul level. And I think wouldn't that be beautiful to be able to re-experience those things? And so she has this gift to not just manipulate memories, but to give away those memories. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that it would be so cool to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Kinda like hopping off of your description of because I wanna go into your background because not this is kinda like the companion piece for The Enchanted Hacienda, but you also have a couple other published work. Yeah, like, how did and you could talk about both too, because I added Enchanted Hacienda to my reading list after reading this, because it was funny because I think I was reading, like, the acknowledgments or something, or your author's note, and where you started talking about that, so I had to go through my I was like, "Wait a second, this is there's another part of this book? Wait, this is not the first." So I had to go dig in and then I was like doing research on you. So can you get into like your background and maybe how you like any or is like either professionally or personally or as an author and kind of like how this idea developed, this family, this idea of the magical family developed, how you decided to bring the stories out into the world?
Yeah, sure. I began my career writing middle grade fiction, and I really love writing for kids, and one of the questions I would often get is, "Why do you write for that age category?" And there's something it's almost like it's that time when in your life, if you can think back to when you were 10, 11, 12, when every you just have this open road of possibilities, and there's so much hope, and you have such an awareness of your imagination and creativity before the world gets a hold of you, before those hard
Yeah.
and so I'd written for middle grade for many years, and then I penned a couple of young adult, actually more than maybe 2 or 3 young adult novels, and people will say, "Why did you decide to write an adult novel?" I didn't plan it. I wish that I mapped out my career that way, but I don't.
Mhm.
I am a storyteller by nature, and stories come to me in a very organic way. And so I almost always get the first scene of a book, almost always. And this one was, and I see characters and I see what they're doing and I want to know more. And this one was a little bit different because I saw these beautiful rolling hills filled with it was a sea of color. It's during the golden hour, and I knew that the flowers were enchanted and there was magic in the soil, and I wanted to know who tended these flowers, who cultivated these flowers. And I have lots of ideas and sometimes they turn into nothing and other times I just
Sure.
can't let them go in the same way as readers when we all pick up books and we're just like, "Oh my gosh, I have to read more, I have to read more." That's how it feels as a writer as well. And so as I started developing this family and really thinking about where their magic came from and really exploring the depths of who they were as human beings and their history, I knew that it was an adult novel and
Mhm.
that I didn't set out for a specific age category. And so that's how all of my stories really begin is in a very kind of organic, natural way where I'm very clear where it's gonna go and who the story is gonna be about and some of the themes that I'm gonna tackle, and that just really helps drive who the audience is gonna be.
Yeah, I that's a common for when I speak to authors who have written for various age groups. The sentiment is the same. It's like it maybe they start off one way, but then they find that no, there's organically know this is meant for this age group, kind of story you wanna tell, the way that you wanna tell that story, it's a little bit more appropriate, and even if Anatomy of Magic, this one, it's categorized as an adult novel, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's I guess, like, when I think of adult, I think of, okay, swear words or explicit content, but it's not even like that. I think it's just because it's the maturity level,
Right.
and it's not okay, I think there's, like, what, 4 or 5 swear words in, like, the whole book, and maybe it's towards the end when there's a specific event happening without being too
Right.
spoilery, understandably. There's a love story behind it all, and or a lot of that's a large part of it, and there's those intimate moments, but it wasn't yeah, it was not like it's not like how some other authors decide to play out those scenes, but, yeah, I just remember because I was thinking about that too, I was like, "Oh, I haven't read an adult novel that didn't straight up have an open door sex scene or didn't have" and I don't know if you would categorize yours as open door because it's kinda like Fade to Black because the scene is there, you just move on from it, so
Right.
I thought it was really interesting, but it flowed really well, and it was like it was an important part of the story, but you got the point across, and that's why I like thought it was interesting, I appreciated that. I appreciate all levels of intimacy and storytelling, as long as they make sense. Hopping off of that a little bit, what research-wise, what kinda? Because obviously there's the flowers and the scents and how they work together, and maybe the region and history of the land, stuff like that. Did you have to do any type of research that maybe you didn't already know, or that you have to revisit the world of the Enchanted Haciendas? Did you approach it the same way as, like, your other titles, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think every novel has a different level of research. When I was doing a series for Disney, the Stormrunner series, it required, oh my gosh, a really deep dive into
Mm,
the Mayan culture and the pantheon of gods and that kind of thing. This one was different. So I took a lot of poetic license. It's very loosely based on San Miguel de Allende. I've spent a lot of time there for probably the last 20 years. And it's a place that I love, and it's a place that offers me a real sense of peace. And I'm the kind of writer, I really admire writers who don't have to go to a place to write about it. Yeah, so in speaking about the research, I've spent a lot of time in San Miguel. It's a place that I love. It's a place that really it's balm for my spirit in a lot of ways. And so it made sense that I would write about it. And I've been there so many times that it wasn't a difficult thing to do. And I was talking about the fact that I really admire authors who don't have to visit a place. But even when in the Enchanted Hacienda, the two characters go to Quebec, and I had to go to Quebec, I have to feel
okay.
the road beneath my feet. I have to smell the air. I have to eat the food. I have to embrace the culture. I have to talk to people. That's just me, and it's a tremendous privilege, and I know that, but man, I would love it if I could stay home and be able to just write from what I see, but
Mhm.
I think my senses I have to absorb everything through all senses, and so to me, that's a level of research, and then I did do some research, very loose research on various meanings of flowers, and then I took poetic license and I crafted my own meanings from that I thought would be strongly aligned with the Mexican culture.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciated that too because I'm half Mexican, like, I have family that still lives there, they, like, own properties on both sides of the border, and so, yeah, some of these stuff, it was like but mother's half it was my mother's half, and but she was very Americanized
Mhm,
versus, like, her siblings and her extended family, but I still yeah, I totally appreciate I visited property, like, a bunch of times, it's been a while since I've gone, but yeah, I some of those sentiments I totally appreciate it because but even if you're not familiar with the land, when you go into Quebec, I love that how you're like, I just gotta do it. You're just like but it's fun. To me, that would seem like the fun type of research
it is.
versus, like, pouring through materials or something like that. I think so yeah, some authors, they do, like, just a lot of traveling in their work, and they're like, "Oh, I got to make a girls trip out of it and get
Right.
some details and see
Yeah.
some places," and but yeah, it's so important because, like you said, like, the senses, like, the smell, the sights, just it's something as simple as feeling like how you said, like, the stones under your feet. That's something that's detail that will help you engage with the reader and help put the reader
Mhm.
through it too. Because that's why I think I just appreciated this so much because like, I could definitely see just this style of writing. I was like I felt connected to the characters and I felt connected to the scenery, and yeah, like, I could picture it, and it's just I think that part of that was it just adds to the magic, like, the overall vibe that you're trying to go for because it is, like, magical. I could sense it. It's there, I can imagine the flowers, and I can like, poor Lily, though, like, when she starts using her magic and she's just thrown into the process
Mhm.
without warning, really, like,
Right.
she's or something's happened that she's, "Wait a second," and that kind of I felt like I was there with her, I was like, "Yeah, wait a second, what's going on?" Well, that's the beauty of it, you immerse yourself in it so that you can help immerse, like, your readers in it too, and
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's the
love that.
goal, right? Is to
Mhm.
pluck them out of this world, even if it's only for a little while, so that they can immerse themselves in another world.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, I love that. So, there could be considered trigger warnings, content warning, what Lily goes through, what starts her journey, and then not just in her profession and like that high stress situation and feeling for her that she blames herself for that situation and for what happened, understandably. So, could what how do you approach like sensitive topics and themes like that or potential trigger warnings? Because I imagine maybe you don't I mean, it's different based on the age group that you're writing for. I just wanna, like how did you navigate that? I kinda just wanna explore how you, like, approach those
Mhm.
types of themes.
Yeah. When it comes to when I'm writing for kids, I approach no matter the age category, I try to approach it with as much sensitivity as possible, and then I want other people to read it and say, "Hey, how did this feel for you?" And but I don't sugarcoat it. I think
Yeah,
oftentimes for kids, I've dealt with themes of grief, with bullying, with not feeling good. There's so many issues, and I think sometimes if we sugarcoat it, we don't validate it. And I think being a human being, I have 3 daughters and I tell them all the time, it's not for the faint of heart. It's just not.
yeah,
No one's getting
yeah,
out alive. No one's getting out without a broken heart. No one is getting out without suffering. That is this life, right? There's also moments
yeah,
of joy and beauty. And that's the stuff that I want to explore in a way that really embraces everyone and says, hey, we're all going through this together on this planet.
yeah,
We are more alike, in the words of Maya Angelou, we are more alike than we are different. And so, more than anything, I think one of the first things I tackle is the emotions surrounding it. And then I'm really careful about the words that I use and how I'm going to develop that scene. And so the particular scene you're talking about, if you notice, it's very short when we actually get to see the full scene and we don't get into every nitty gritty detail to
right.
the point where it's like, God, I did not need. How many times have you watched a movie or read a book or watched a show and you're thinking, do I really need to see the details of that? Could we
Yeah,
fade to black? Because that to me sometimes is so much more powerful than pulling somebody in to watch something that can be really painful. Like I cannot do animals that die. I just my husband
mm,
laughs at me. And even on the Game of Thrones, I was a huge fan. And whenever the dragons got hurt, I was like, do we have to see this? Could we just fade and just know that? And here they're CGI and I'm upset about it.
yeah,
So I think that there's
yeah.
a level of sensitivity and then making the decision, how much do we have to see really? And I think sometimes creators go a little for my taste, go a little bit far.
Yeah, it goes back to the storytelling, like, how are you gonna tell this story? And it's yeah, there are certain creators who know they really wanna drive a point home, they wanna make you uncomfortable, they think that to really get the point across and to get that emotion, there's a certain amount of footage that you have to see versus yeah, it's fade to black or even if it reminds me of something like if it's a car crash. I think that I've seen movies where it's a car crash, but there's like a slow song playing over it. So you're not hearing the noises, you're not hearing the screams or the cries. You're just getting clips and you understand, but it's like a music overtone, slow song to make up for that, to pad it down a little bit, to add some to add some palpability, yeah, like absorption availability, like, you're able to absorb it, still seeing the impact
Mhm.
of that. Because that's what that yeah, there are ways to tell it where you don't have to be so, like, in your face, you don't have to be so, like, gruesome or things like that. Although, it's funny you mentioned the dragons because it's or when an animal dies, because I think that's I think the first time I cried in a movie was when a dog died, like that and I was, like, 11, I think. I was like
Yeah.
It was, there's something about it's like, I don't really when people die, it's I don't feel it as much as when a dog dies. I don't know what it is.
But you hurt
I
the
don't
dog,
know.
you hurt an animal, and I'm out. I'm just like, "Nope, nope, I gotta I literally will fast forward through certain because I what's coming, and I'm like, "I don't need to do that to my soul right now."
Yeah, yeah, and, like, to your point about based on the age level, 'cause I interviewed Daniel Kraus a handful of times. I don't know, so he does more so, like, horror, kinda like gothic themed, but he did write, like, a three-part middle grade series, but it was still, like, just as harsh. It was still, like, just as dark, and I was like obviously, he changed the language, like, the storytelling based on it was basically teddy bears that were, like they woke up a teddy bear who woke up in a dump, and they didn't understand, like, why they're in a dump, why are they not on the store shelves?
Oh,
Yeah, and so I was like, "Jesus Christ,"
yeah.
and so when I talked to him about it, "Where do you get off, like, writing such, like, dark shit for middle schoolers?" And I mean, if they don't like it, they can put it down. He was like I don't think we should, like, necessarily shy them away from some of, like, more serious concepts because he's like, you certain populations of children are growing up where they're walking next to pawn shops or liquor stores. They're walking in certain challenged communities in their areas and things like high crime areas and things like that. There's populations of children that have no choice. They're confronted with that in their daily life. These kids can handle a lot, and it's okay to let them decide, like, what they're ready for, what they feel like absorbing or feel like what they're interested in, and it's just yeah, it's like a delicate balance, but he was just so pragmatic about it. I was like, "Yeah, okay, that's a good point," but still, it's like the teddy bears, come on. Because it was like at one point, one of them was, like, getting carried off by, like, a
Don't
dog
even
or
tell me.
something. Yeah. See, I
I
wasn't
can't even read the Velveteen Rabbit, okay?
yeah, I know, it was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but well done either way. I
Yeah.
was like it was still, like, very good.
Well, I need darkness. I love actually, my favorite scenes to write, especially for kids, are the dark scenes, the shadow
Mm,
scenes, the monstrous scenes. I really love writing those because I think that we do live in a world where we understand the difference between good and evil, right? And we have to confront those things every single day. And whether it's a young kid who's battling an actual monster on the page versus a kid who's
yeah.
battling a monster they live with, right? And who's symbolized as a monstrosity in their life. And, for me, it's those kids, they need to see those things too. And I think that there's a sense of feeling less alone. How many times have you read something or seen something and talked to someone about it? And then you're like, oh gosh, other people have confronted that or other people feel that. And then you feel less alone in the world.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, absolutely. It helps it just yeah, like, just that that's the beauty of storytelling or reading stories that you can resonate with, that you can relate to, because it helps even if maybe you're not sure how to make sense of it or navigate your thoughts,
Right.
then at least reading certain examples like that, reading similar stories can help you figure out how it makes sense to you and or at least give you like a soundboard, give you like a starting point to yeah, it could like it's a therapeutic in a way,
Sure.
absolutely. Hopping off, I was gonna ask you this two-parter, what were the most challenging parts to write, and then what were the most enjoyable parts to write?
So the most challenging for me is always the romance.
Mm.
So the bedroom scenes for me, I remember because I'd been writing for kids for a long time. So when I wrote Enchanted Hacienda, I can still remember it got to that scene, right? And I was like, look, I got to keep driving forward and I can't deliver for the readers. Like I've been building this scene up. And I remember I was like, my mom's going to read this book. My dad's my kids or whatever. And I had to push past that. And I thought, where is that coming from when sex is the most normal thing, right? And these scenes are between two consenting adults. But I really struggle because I find myself wanting to pull out of the scene as quickly as possible. And with Lily and Sam, I wanted to stay in those scenes as long as
Yeah.
possible. But they're the scenes that are the most difficult for me.
Mm.
And you know what I struggle with too? I really struggle with getting my character from point A to point B. How much
Oh, okay.
detail do we need? Did they walk? Did they stroll? Did they drive? Right. It's this whole, because for me, I'm like, I just want the really fun, amazing, big, beautiful, colorful, even the shadowy scenes. And oftentimes
Mhm.
my editors will say, okay, we need to slow down. The pacing is great, but can we have a quiet moment? And I'm like, I don't want to write a quiet moment. I got
Yeah.
more. I want to write something else. And so those I think are the most difficult. And I think that the parts that I love the most, I love writing about the landscape. I loved writing about the flowers. And I really loved writing about the relationship and the love between the women. I don't think that we celebrate
Mm,
that quite as much as I would love to see, especially when you're talking about a book that centers around a heterosexual relationship that's based on
yeah.
love and attraction and XYZ. And so I really loved pulling in, but there's other love, there are these other loves over here. And what does that mean? Whether it's friendship or sisters or cousins or mothers, and they're fraught with all of these complexities and challenges. And like, I love exploring that stuff.
I love that. I love that you point that out because it's people love romance. Like we eat it. There's a reason why romance sells, and whatever level of intimacy that you want. Because yeah, there are people who are like, I don't need the graphic details or the open door scenes. Some people want that, and that's fine, different strokes. And but I think a lot of the time where a lot of romance where it is like you said, the heterosexual relationship, where it's like you forget the female friendships, you forget that those female support system. And I love reading, I love when romantic relationships where the book's based on romantic relationships. I love it when the main character, she has a life, she has a support system outside of that. Where it's like if she didn't get her happy ever after, she would still have that. She would still have those friendships and those relationships. And I think that's 100% so important. And it just makes it that much more authentic too, because then you're
Mhm.
like, and it gives it's just like the strength to the character. There's like that extra strength. It's if she's going through it, she's having a hard time. She's got her support system. And and even if and it's like they're there for forgiveness. They're there to support her because she's got to forgive herself. She's got to come to terms with everything that she's been through and what was her fault, what wasn't her fault, what she could have done differently, what she had no control over. And I think sometimes you need that support system to remind you of that.
Mhm.
So even though they agree, like, yes, you know that you did something wrong. We know that we agree that you did something wrong. We got to figure this out now.
Yeah.
And okay, like game on, all hands on deck kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I love that because it's like, of course, I don't know. For Sam, I feel like he was swoony. He was a dreamboat. And it was like, as soon as she was in his presence again, even they were both like, damn it. Like, it was like no time has passed. Their attraction, the gravitational pull towards each other was just as strong, and she had to contend with that too. And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, that was like he was a huge part of her healing and her like
Sure.
he was the reason for it. But like she needed to confront that part
Mhm.
in order to get her whole back, to get like that important part of herself back and all that. But with it's I think it's great how I think I could tell reading it. I don't wanna say I could tell you struggled with the love scenes, like the intimate scenes. I could tell that you were, like, not uncomfortable, but I could tell that you were like, "I'm putting this in there. I need to put it in there. It needs to be in there because they were like, when they reconnect, they go at
Right.
it. And it's but that's part of the story, the beauty of it, because it's like that's how they're showing their love. That's how they're showing they missed each other and feel like they belong together and there was nobody else for
Right.
either of them. And that's it stuff like that, those moments like that where it's so important. But I think I can tell a little bit of your struggle with that, like, across on the page just because
Mhm.
like, you're like, "No, this is important. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get through it." Me notes and if I need to
Well, and
change
it's funny
anything
because it
'cause
was
it's
easier this time than when I wrote Enchanted Hacienda. It was a lot easier, but
okay.
and I think too, I think it's a mood driven thing. Sometimes I pick up a book and I'm like, give me all the racy
Yeah.
fire on the page, and other times I'm like, I just want something quiet and character driven, and you can close the door. And there are a lot of books that they just close the door, and I'm like, oh, I would have liked 2 beats more. And
Yeah.
that's why reading and storytelling, it's all so subjective, and you have
Oh,
to,
yeah.
I think more than anything, it's about following the characters and making sure that you're doing good by them. And this isn't really, I would not call this book a romance book. I would say that the romance is obviously a part, very big part of the plot, but it's also this coming of age tale. It's also this women's fiction in a way that she's working through all of these other issues too. And even though that's the inciting incident and that's what's driving everything, I think that is an important element. I think that if I were rating a straight up romance, I think it would be probably a very different vibe in terms of those physical
Mm.
scenes.
Yeah, that was just the romance was unfortunately heard. I always say unfortunately because it's a heavy topic, and romance could be a heavy
Yeah,
topic. It can I say this, it's, like, hard to explain. It's like love is one of those complicated emotions. It just has the power to, like, make everything brighter, and also if you lose it, makes everything duller, and it's just like
it changes
that's
you.
that's like a raw Mhm.
Yeah,
100%, 100%. That's why when I talking about the heartbreak before, it was just like, yeah, I don't as horrible as it was, like it was in hindsight, it was like I still wouldn't give that experience up
yeah.
because it's part of I'm content with who I how I came out of it. I'm happy with how I came out of it, and it's 20 years later, and it's yeah, I made it. I'm fine. I got a family and husband and family. Everything's fine. At the time, it seemed like my world was ending, and that's I imagine
Course.
how,
That's what love
you
does,
know
right? Yeah. And it's interesting because I think, so I've talked about my 3 daughters, and in raising them, it's really hard to tell a young person the struggles shape who you are. The struggles
Yeah.
will carve your path, and none of us wanna hear that. But think about it. Think about the times of your greatest development and evolution have probably been through going through something really challenging and difficult. If your life was perfect and you were always happy and everything was great and you didn't have to worry about anything, I don't see where the growth is in that. And none of us like it. Look, I don't like the rules, okay? But I do think that there is, on the other side of that suffering, is something that we can also hopefully look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, absolutely. But it's exactly it's hard to, like well, it's, like, easier said than done. It's, like, easy to say it now because we know, but, like, for, like, the young daughters and I'm like, I just have 2 boys, and I'm already like, I don't know how that's gonna look because at this point it's like I'll go off on a tangent a little bit 'cause there's some moms that will come up to me like, "Oh, your son, I think he's 3 little girl 3 of his classmates have crushes on him. I think he's a little bit of like, a ladies' man," and I'm like, "Oh, that doesn't come from anything in the house," and, like, when I tease him about it, I'm like I ask him, like, "How come you didn't tell me, like, how come you didn't say anything about these your classmates having crushes on you?" And he's 7, "I didn't even know, okay?" Like, he's I'm like, "Good. You're oblivious, you're worried ab he's just a little boy, he's not worried about girls." Whereas, yeah, 2nd graders, the
Yeah.
elementary age, there's a chance that girls will be like, "Oh, boys, he's cute."
Yeah.
And so it's yeah, it's just funny to see that discrepancy, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't maybe not have to worry about that for a while," or where he's just totally oblivious, and people who I speak to, like men who I speak to, they're like, "He might be oblivious for another 20 years." Like, seriously.
You know, everyone
So it's
has
like,
their
okay.
challenges. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The best I can do is, like, just set expectations realistically, and hopefully he has a level of respect where he, like, knows how to treat men. That's how or if they turn out like they're attracted to same sex people, then the same component, the same sentiment, just, like, respect people, respect yourself. You don't owe anybody anything. Try not to break hearts. I just don't wanna but no, it's true. I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this hole,
Yeah.
and so it's just, ugh, it's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, make or break you,
Yeah, well,
all that.
like I
I'm
said, being human is not for the faint of heart.
gonna throw this at you. What what advice would you give to Lily? What advice would you give to Sam?
I think it depends on at what stage in the book we're talking about, but I think that when we Lily has, in her adult life, she has put on this armor, and she wears this armor every day, and it's heavy, and she's tired. And she's had to do that not just because of the experiences that she had when she was young, but also because being a doctor and being in that world has required that of her. And I found myself wanting to nurture her a lot in the beginning of the book. She did nothing for herself. There was no self care.
Mm,
She lives in this plain apartment. There's no art on the walls. There's no There's no kinda like joie de vivre. She's not, like,
Mm,
embracing life. She just gets up and goes through the same thing over and over, and it doesn't feel like a life to me. And so I
yeah.
found myself really wanting to, like, just hug her and nurture her, and I wanted to peel back her armor, and I wanted that softer part of her. Yeah, so I think that my advice to Lily would have been, you don't have to be so tough all the time. It is okay to let people see your underbelly. It's okay. It's gonna be okay.
Mhm.
So that'd be
Yeah.
my advice to her. And I think for Sam, I want to slap him. Sam was very frustrating for me. On one hand, I what I love about Sam is that he is this quiet stoic type. He doesn't have a lot to say, and what he
Yeah.
does say seems like it's really important. And we all know people like that,
Mhm.
right? We know the
Yeah.
people who go on and you're thinking, I don't even know what you just said. And then we know the people who say two sentences and you're like, wow. So I think my advice to Sam would be something similar in that you don't have to constantly protect your heart and to really just relax into the moment and let it go. I feel like both of them were perfectionists in their own way, and they were both weighted down with a different kind of shame. And obviously I can't blow with the spoiler. I can't reveal those spoilers, but Sam's harboring his own secrets, right? And so I think it's a matter of take a breath. You can let go now. It's time, just let go. You don't have to try to
Mhm.
control everything all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, solid advice for a lot of people. I feel like it's just take a breath. Like, it's the world isn't gonna come crashing down
Right.
if you're not doing A, B, and C as to what your whatever your formula you have in your mind. No, I like that. I appreciate that. So, JC Cervantes, are you working on anything that you can talk about? What do you got going on next?
Let's see what kind
I
of
don't wanna get you in trouble, so it's okay if you
so I am working on a secret project that I have been keeping a secret for over 2 years,
Oh, wow, good for
and
you.
it should be announced this year. I'm so excited about it. It is very cool, and I think a lot of readers are gonna be really excited about it. And then I am wrapping up a companion it's a middle grade novel. It's the companion novel to Daggers of Ire, and so I'm wrapping that book up. And then I have another idea for an adult novel that I'm dying to just dive into, and it is a romance time travel heist.
Mm.
And then I have an idea for a middle grade novel that I am dying to get my hands on. So yeah, I'm really excited to start drafting those ideas, but I'm usually juggling several projects at once.
Yeah, this one is still coming out, so you gotta take one thing at a time, right? You gotta
We'll
get that
see.
you're excited to start, but you're like, "Wait, I gotta get through this
And
first."
it's funny, and I've said this, adults understand it, but kids do not. So
No.
by the time a novel comes out, I've probably written 2 or 3 since.
Sure, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so whenever I do school visits for the middle grade kids, it's really funny because or the elementary school kids, because they'll start asking questions and my brain goes blank, like entirely blank. And I can't remember characters' names. I can obviously remember like the big general sweeping stuff. And I always explain to them, please forgive me. I've written 3 books since then. And I literally start blending the stories together. And so you're right, like Anatomy of Magic, since I finished that, I'm on my 3rd novel since then. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
there's a pretty big time gap between when we turn in the book and when it actually hits shelves.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I know, and that's just the world of publishing,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because it's just
Mhm.
yeah, you gotta remember everything, and then not only that, but it's like trying to keep up with the trends and stuff too. It's a whole thing. I have, sympathy for that,
Yeah.
for sure. Do you think that you're gonna revisit the Estrada family at all?
I'm not sure. It's not on my radar right now, although I would love to follow Camilla, the oldest sister,
Mm,
who is the only woman in the family who is married. And I
mhm.
have an idea for a story for her, but it would be gut-wrenching. And
Mm,
I don't know because they're such a joyful family, even though they go through these dark, terrible times associated even with their magic and the deal that their descendant made with this goddess that they all now have to live up to. They didn't even get the choice. So I have an idea for that. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for that, but I could see how when the time is right, you'll be ready, right? Like, when you got all these exciting things going on. Oh, real quick, who this cover is so cute, and it took me I think it took me until I almost finished the book that the vase was the heart, was an actual heart. I was
Yeah.
like, "That's so cute." Did you get, like, a say in that? Did you have a vision board, or did you just the cover artist was just, like, matched your vibe? Like, how did that go?
I'm really lucky because I've worked with probably 6 different publishers, and they've all been so wonderful and flexible in terms of, "Let's start thinking about the cover. Are there specific scenes that you'd like to highlight? Are there themes? Are there elements?" And I had wanted to bring something in. Originally, there was gonna be like a medical book, and I said, "No, it looks too sciencey. It's too
Mm,
medical. It felt sterile." And I was like, "Okay, what if we did something like with the vase and it was like the organ of a heart?" And so
yeah,
I think it was working with the designers pretty closely until we got it, because it is a different vibe from the hardcover of Enchanted Hacienda. The
mm.
paperback of Enchanted Hacienda, I think, is probably a little bit more closely aligned with the Anatomy of Magic. Yeah, but it's always great fun. To me, that's always the exciting fun part, is getting to do that stuff.
It can, yeah, it can be because it just brings it all together, and you're setting the stage, you're setting the expectations, and there's, like, there's a pressure, but it's, like, a fun kind of pressure.
Yeah.
It's just, like, the design part of it. So, JC Cervantes, where can we find you online and on social media?
I am on Instagram, author J Cervantes. And I do some threads, not a lot. I mostly lurk on threads. So Instagram's probably the best place. And then my website, jccervantes.com.
Perfect, perfect. So, Anatomy of Magic that comes out on March 11th. JC Cervantes, thank you so much for your time and
Yeah,
for chatting and getting a little bit deeper with some of these themes and stuff like that. And yeah, whenever, if and when you ever want to come back and chat about another title, feel free. I'd love to have you back again.
I would love that. Thank you so much. Had a great time.
And there you go. That was JC Cervantes talking about her book, The Anatomy of Magic. That book is available on March 11th. Check out the show notes where you can find links to purchase the book and where to find JC Cervantes online and on social media. Rate, review, subscribe. Find Cantina Book Club online and on social media as well. Subscribe on your favorite podcast player or on YouTube so that you don't miss a beat. If you need book recommendations, you can find my book reviews on cantinabookclub.com. I write book reviews for any genre, whatever you're looking for. If you like an author and their books, please go ahead and hop on over to Amazon and Goodreads. Give them a rating and a review. It really does help the authors out just as much as purchasing their books. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening.